Lakeland Public Television presents Currents.
Good evening. Welcome to Lakeland Currents. I'm Bethany Wesley. Between 1883 and 1929, Andrew Carnegie, a self-made steel tycoon, funded the construction of 2,509 libraries throughout the world, including more than 1,600 in the United States. One of those libraries still stands today in downtown Bemidji, and a group of local residents is fighting to ensure that building remains standing long into the future. The Save the Carnegie Steering Committee has been working since 2012 to raise $1.6 million to preserve and repair the 106-year-old building. Tonight, we welcome to the program Lew Crenshaw, the chairman of the committee, and Cathy Marchand, treasurer of the committee. Together, we are going to explore the history of the Bemidji Carnegie Library and discuss why they believe the library should be preserved for future generations. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, and good evening.
You.
Let's start a little bit with the history of the Carnegie. How did it come to Bemidji? It was actually a resident who wrote a letter to Mr. Carnegie to ask him for money?
What happened was originally the local community women started a small lending library in town in the basement of the courthouse. And after a couple of years decided that it needed to be responsible, the city needed to be responsible for it, and requested a formal library board. Okay. So the chairman of the library board, A.P. Ritchie, was the one who wrote the letter to Carnegie, who by then was well known for sponsoring libraries throughout the country. And with a little bit of negotiation, eventually they agreed that a library would be built here in town.
There were certain qualifications a city had to have sometimes for Carnegie to support. There was like population, I think taxable value.
Yep.
And then industries. And then there also was a stipulation the land had to be donated for the library.
The land had to be donated by the city. The city had to provide all the books for the library, and they had to commit to a 10% every year of the value of the dollars that Carnegie had provided to maintain and support the library. So in our case, Carnegie provided $12,500 to build the building, and the city council voted to provide $1,250 annually to support and maintain the building.
And of course the plot of land, what we call Library Park, was made available. The roads were moved around a bit, and that was donated by the city specifically for the Carnegie Library.
And the last requirement from Carnegie was that the library, any library that he built, had to be free and open to the public.
One funny story about that is that if you go into the building, it's beautiful inside, I hope people do, there's what were used as fire exits have kind of a funny configuration, and the reason is that the original plans, the city wanted to have a reading deck out over the lake, which would have been beautiful, but the Carnegie group in New York City said, well, that was too extravagant.
Oh. Yeah. But they built it with the doors there in case someone wanted to donate money later to create the
to add on.
Just a little fun story.
And it never happened, but they're there.
Today, when you go through downtown Bemidji, it's right at the intersection of 5th and Highway 197. That wasn't how it was originally, correct? The library was pushed. The road wasn't as big at that time.
The road was very narrow. It was a two-lane street. There were lots of trees along the way. And 5th Street was actually wide with a mall down the center. We have some lovely old photographs where you can see the library building set back from what was then Bemidji Avenue with trees in front and a little yard and looking up the mall to through 5th Street.
Yeah, 5th Street had a reserve of grass, so it was like a separated two lanes, if you will. Yeah. But of course, the problem of the Carnegie is that that's the busiest intersection in town. 25,000 cars per day use that today because that road has become so
As
busy.
Bemidji got more and more traffic, they widened the road, and then they widened it again, and every time the Carnegie lost a little bit more of the front lawn. And now
we talked with the Minnesota design team. That's an architectural group. We talked with MnDOT about ways to change that, maybe put in a roundabout, maybe change that intersection. No one ever came up with an idea that was acceptable. And so the problem that the city has is that the bottom step of the leaving the exit is only a little more than 4 feet from moving traffic. And that is but why the building stopped being used as a library, because it was believed it was unsafe, and it is, for children to cross that road and use the front steps, certainly on their own. And that's why the city has worried a lot, and justifiably, about the liability that
So close to that main roadway.
yeah, it's just,
Yep.
and so after looking at all of the options, we have agreed to take on the task of moving the building back 17 feet
Okay.
away from that highway. And that,
So that pushes it further back into Library Park, closer to the
Closer
lake.
to the lake.
yeah, now,
Yeah.
the interesting thing is, and this is, we had to get permission from the National Park Service in Washington to agree to this and keep the building on the historic register, because they hate for you to move historic buildings. But we told them, in order to save it, we need to do that, because the snow plows throw breaks the windows, it's dissolving the facade.
The sandstone and the
Salt
facade.
from
Yeah.
the roadways.
Yeah.
It has traffic lights hanging over it, and you can, anyway, it's not a nice building to be in that close to, and it's dangerous. But one of our best, if you will, reasons for the National Park Service is, the wonderful thing is it restores the original configuration to the road, gives it back the little front yard it used to have, and so now going on forward, the building is like it originally was. Yeah, it's Library Park and sitting there up above the lake.
When was the building listed on the register?
1980.
80, okay.
People,
And
some visionary people did that. I'll step back just a minute to a little bit more history. There were only 66 libraries, Carnegie libraries, built in Minnesota, and there are 48 of them left, but only 22 are still library buildings. But a lot of them got torn down because of the changing opinions of the value of these buildings. And so we're trying hard to keep ours. Obviously, it's not going to be a library going forward, but at least we will have kept it. And again, I'm going to pull out one little quote.
Great.
Talk about why Andrew Carnegie did what he did. Okay. And he said that, "I believe that a library outranks any other one thing that a community can do to benefit its people." And one of the reasons that I am so firmly supportive of this project, enough to work on it the way we are, is that I believe that our forefathers, our grandparents and their parents, really felt that Bemidji was more than just a mill town, that it was a place that people had culture, people had learning, they wanted to give their community and their residents the opportunities to grow and succeed in life, and their children. And so that Carnegie building is a legacy that they left us that we are trying to preserve because it's such a symbol of them wanting to give us the opportunity. And that's where Carnegie was, and that's what he was trying to do for all of the communities that he built libraries in. So a little diversion away from the road, I'm afraid.
No,
but
fascinating.
You know, Bethany, just to kind of come along about the community, I'm an old business guy, and so I never knew anything about fundraising, but I've learned a lot in the last couple of years. It's really interesting in that some people believe in historic preservation and the kind of legacy that Cathy was alluding to, and some people don't. They'll say to me, well, why don't you just tear it down and put something new there? Well, of course, that's not the point when you talk about a legacy through time. But I just want to say that I think this community really wants this building. We have almost $100,000 from people who have given us $1, $2,
we have
$5,
more than $100,000.
$10.
Just from people who gave you
Small
whatever they had
donations.
available.
Yep. They
to
bought
support.
T-shirts, they bought buttons, they've given us, like Lew said, $20 or less anytime. It's been phenomenal. And that's, for a community this size, to have raised that much money in those small donations is remarkable.
This all kind of came to a head, if I remember correctly, in 2011. The council actually voted at one time to just demolish the building and move on. And the residents, the city really, from the public, stepped up and said, no, we don't want to lose another building.
Yeah, a huge groundswell of emotion and support for not tearing it down. And you know, the city council really was in a dilemma. They were facing the fact that the tenants were going to be moving out, and they really didn't have the funds they thought to be fiscally responsible to this community to deal with the building. And as Lew said, there were safety concerns about it. There was the need to make the building accessible if it was going to come back to the city's responsibility. And all of those things they looked at and they just couldn't conceive of how to do it. So when the community came back and said, no, we don't want you to tear that building down, we believe we can raise the money to do it, then they were willing to give us the chance to make that happen. So here we are, and well down the path of succeeding, I think.
So the target to raise is 1.6 million.
Yep.
And was that identified pretty early on? How did you come up with that figure in terms of what you need?
We did what's called, and this is kind of always a step in historical preservation, we hired an architect, and actually we hired the architect who had renovated the Carnegie Library in
Thief River Falls.
Thank you, Thief River Falls. So he was very familiar with a building like this, and Alan Brew gave us $10,000 to pay for that, what's called a conditions assessment. So he came up with a budget. We have escalated that with inflation, but of course now at this stage in the process, we have a complete plan, which you might want to speak to.
One of the things we were successful at was we received a legacy grant in late 2014 for $50,000 to help pay for the architectural planning and design. So over the course of last year, we worked with the local architect to actually create a formal set of plans with bidding documents and all of the technical design, and to go along with that, a formal budget. So what we now have is a much more accurate and up-to-date assessment of what the cost was going to be. And part of that is moving the building. Part of that is creating an accessible entrance, a new addition on the back, to have an elevator and stairs back there. And then the biggest part is to do the actual restoration work. So exterior, interior, HVAC, all of the, all the guts of the building.
The building has really been neglected and is in pretty bad shape in its systems. The basic bones and the interior are still very nice, but we need new plumbing, and we got to have modern restrooms. They're 110 years old and laughable. And so we need all the mechanical systems, electrical, heat, air conditioning, and a big piece of this is to continue to use this as a public building. We need to put on an extension that has disability access, an elevator, ramps for wheelchairs.
Because it's not ADA compliant now.
Correct.
It's not. See, people who criticize our program say, well, oh, you're going to spend all that money to move the building. Well, it's really not that much to move the building. I'm not saying it's not expensive, but it's not as expensive as the addition to give us modern access and use.
One of the requirements for being a building on the historic register is you can't interfere with the front facade. So as we move it back, we're going to take out the current doors, which aren't original, and restore them. But we couldn't make that front entrance into an accessible entrance. So the facade will remain the historic facade, and we'll have the entrance for the accessibility on the rear. Yep.
Okay, makes sense. Interesting. Now, is the building occupied now?
It was until recently by the Region 2 Arts Council on the lower floor.
And the Watermark Center.
And the Watermark Center. But they, of course, have now moved across the street into their new building.
So the building is empty.
It's called 502.
We mothballed it last winter. There's no plumbing functional anymore, and we shut the heat off for the winter. But the summer now, we've had the building open, we've cleaned it up a little bit. We are making it open for a whole variety of events this summer, so people can actually come in and take a look at the place, some of whom haven't been able to be in it for decades. So we're inviting people to come to all of our events and have a chance to see what it really is like inside.
And once they see it, hopefully then they see more of the value in terms of keeping it and restoring it and maintaining it.
Yep, exactly.
Do you have plans for what it may be used for once all the work is done?
Yep.
Who might occupy it?
Yep, we have several, two different approaches at the same time. The basement we are going to modernize and make available for tenant space. So we're going to have up to 1,500 square feet for a tenant or two.
Or two at 750.
Yep, and that's going to help us keep the heat on, pay the rent, those sorts of things. The upstairs, though, we're going to take out all the non-original walls. We're going to restore it back to the original state of the library. And then that's going to be kind of a multi-use community available space. So people can rent it for functions. They can have a wedding there. We can have events there. You know, just essentially back to the community to have it be available. We've already talked to the public library folks, our current library folks, who are excited about being able to get back in there and have events again as well.
Well, you think of that Library Fest, and they have all those events throughout in the summertime, and it's like right there in the park. When it's pushed further back by the lake, it'd be a great place for gatherings.
Yeah, it should be in the park, up above the lake, beautifully restored. So for business meetings or family or wedding receptions, we think it'll be a beautiful place.
The other thing that we're going to do in the upper level is we're going to create a small museum space or small exhibit space to talk about the site itself and the building. You know, that's one of the most historic parts of Old Bemidji. You know, there's been human habitation there for 3,000 years. And what our plan is to talk about the history of the site and how unique it is. So what it was like 3,000 years ago pre-contact, what it was like as the community came in and the settlers came in, what it was like for Andrew Carnegie and the community and the history of the Carnegie itself. So the sort of continuity of the culture there all this time. And then that becomes a little bit of Bemidji's history tour. So you come downtown, you see Paul and Babe, you see the statue of Chief Bemidji, you come to the Carnegie Library, you go across the street to the Watermark Center, you go to our History Center. You know, it's all part of the historic downtown, and we're just going to become another jewel in that path.
That's awesome. So 4 years in now, you're reaching for 1.6. Where are you at now?
We have a little over $865,000. That's more than halfway now. It's a significant milestone for us. As I said, we'd had a large grant from the Minnesota State Historic Preservation Office for the architectural design and planning. Last fall, we received a grant for $58,000, which will go towards the exterior restoration, so the sandstone and the brick exterior facade. And this year we're applying for a very large new legacy grant for the construction part of things for the, as Lew said, the systems, the HVAC and so forth, as well as a lot of the interior and windows restoration. So those are the kind of big state grants that we have applied for and received and hope to receive next time. But we've also had some really wonderful large donations from local community, G.W. Nielsen Foundation, the Joseph and Janice Lucan Foundation gave us a lovely grant, and a local family gave us also a very large grant in memory of their grandson who was killed and who really loved to come to Bemidji for his summers. So we've had some really substantially large donations to
Andy and Marilyn Kuhn.
Andy and Marilyn Kuhn.
Summer residents,
Yeah, and then as Lew said too, we've had more than $100,000 worth of donations just from local people in small donations, which is a phenomenal thing. We really appreciate that.
We're really confident that our project will run next spring. As soon as we can, the ground thaws, we can start on construction. I'm a little less confident that we'll have all of the 1.6. We're still a couple $100,000 short when you think about how it might all add up, and so we're still continuing to fundraise. We're looking for people who can help us. And but you know, there's options. We could maybe do a little bit less. We could move the building, stabilize it, get the restrooms, and maybe, well, I don't know. But we're working with the city. We're pretty sure that we can run the project, and we hope that we'll be able to do the complete project next year.
As people have heard about the work that you guys have been doing, have they been pretty receptive? I mean, as word spread over the last few years in terms of, you know, we're going to keep this building?
Yes, absolutely.
With the proviso, though, that, you know, we're a small community. $1.6 million in a community our size is a lot of money. I'm really proud of us. We're hitting to $900,000. I think we're doing well. And I want to say that one of the great things about this community is, for our size, the number of people who volunteer and donate their time and their money to help the community. It's really remarkable. So in fundraising, I run into people who say, I support the Sanford Center. I support the language school. I support the Boys and Girls Club. I support my church. That's fine, you know, because in a way, if you're working to make Bemidji better, then we're all on the same team. So I see it as there's only so much money out there, and we hope that as we close up this campaign this year, that those people who have kind of waited on the sidelines to see how it was going to go are going to step in and help us finish this up.
But to go back to your question, Bethany, yes, I mean, there's so much vocal support, but non-vocal as well. We have been holding events. People come, they donate, they just tell us, you're doing a good job, keep at it, it's going to happen. And that's widespread across the community. And that, you know, that makes all the difference. It's taken us longer than we wanted, but we know it's going to happen. And we're going to start next year to at least get it going so that people see the progress, and then they really will believe that we've accomplished this.
Yeah, once you actually see it start to happen, the people will say, wow, they did it, you know, and how can I help you get to the end? Yeah,
We did it.
Yeah. I think one of the questions people have is, well, how are you going to be able to move that building? But the truth is, it's going to be probably pretty straightforward. We're going to take the stones off, the sandstone facade off the base of it, and run large girders underneath it, pick it up. As they create the new foundation, then you move it back and set it back down again.
Just like moving a house.
Just like moving a house.
Well, you know, they moved that, what was that huge
Schubert
building?
Theater
They moved
in
the Schubert
Minneapolis.
Theater in Minneapolis. It's
It was the size of a square block, and they moved
10
it 3 or
times
4
bigger
blocks.
than this, and they moved it a couple of blocks and spun it 180 degrees, and so this is an easy thing. It just
So our
takes
plan
money.
is to do the time-lapse photography and then put that little video in as part of our museum to show people exactly how
it
we
happened.
did it. Yep. Yeah, it'd be fun.
Let's talk about some of the events that you've held, because you've had some pretty interesting and unique events. In fact, you just had one just a few days ago, the Mulkey.
The U.S. Mulkey Association came and sponsored a fundraiser for us in Library Park. They set up it's a Scandinavian lawn bowling, or Viking bowling.
Yes.
And they had a whole bunch of teams, they set it up. They also donated a large variety of silent auction items for us. They donated all the proceeds for the event to the Carnegie. So we made almost $1,000 this weekend. And it was a gorgeous day, and people had a lot of fun and learned about Mulkey. Yep.
Also coming up in June, you're going to have the Arts and Crafts Fair
Yep.
with the Walleye Classic. So what will that consist of? Are you hosting it and people are renting booths?
Yes, that's exactly it. We, because now we can actually get into the Carnegie and have events for ourselves and not interfere with the Watermark Center folks, we're going to try to have a lot of things available and happening at the Carnegie throughout the summer and into the winter, so that, again, people get a chance to see it. So
Kay Murphy has done an amazing job.
Kay organizes
of organizing
all of these
and
events.
she has how many? I forget.
We
30?
have 25 tables
25,
of different people coming in for this arts and crafts fair.
Yeah, it's
so,
just-
and there's going to be a table
Great.
of things that have been donated to us to sell on behalf of the Carnegie as well. So that's in June. Again, it's going to be, the library will be open, so people will get a chance to come in and take a look at the place. And then in July, there's Art in the Park, and this will be the first year that, again, we'll have the library actually open during Art in the Park to have people come in and see the library.
Okay.
And then
So do you set up displays inside then?
we will have
during
some
that? Okay,
displays,
just
yep,
informational
yep,
kind of.
and give tours, let people walk in and see what it's like.
We'll have members of the committee there to welcome people and
Yep.
answer their
Answer
questions
questions,
and
yep.
talk about our project.
I bet people would love to be able to get in and look around. Not that they couldn't when the Watermark was there, but the fact that you can just kind of look and wander and see the bones. And
Yes, now it's all empty. We've cleaned it up a little bit, so you know, it's essentially down to the walls, and you can see where the original walls are, and you can see what they've added in the modern times. After it was a library, they
Yes. It had a different series of uses.
Yeah, at first it was the social welfare center for the county, and they had a variety of offices in there. And then when the welfare people left, 1981, I think, it was the Arts Council, what was then the Bemidji Area Arts Council. And it's been the art people essentially since 1981. So we've been lucky in the sense that we've always had a tenant in the building, which means it hasn't deteriorated as much as it could have been if it had been empty.
But to serve their purposes, they put up
walls.
Walls to make offices. To make it a gallery, they covered up the windows toward the lake so they could have space for their art displays. And so
part of the restoration will be to take those non-original walls out.
And to bring it back to what it really was.
Yeah, the woodwork
originally.
is really beautiful. And,
The staircase, the railings on the staircase.
It's heavenly, yep. And there's a suspended ceiling up there now with artificial lights, and what we're planning to do is take all that out and restore the plaster and the original hanging lights. But part of the history, the documents in the records say that people believe there's a dome, a shallow dome up there over where the original librarian's desk would have been in the center. So we're hoping when we tear this, the non-original stuff
it's sort
down,
of a mystery. The architects don't believe it's there, but the folklore says it is.
there's a dome up there, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Back to some of your events. You have the fundraiser coming up at the Bemidji Brewing Company, and that's coming up in September.
Yep, and that's a special night too, not just because the Bemidji Brewing people sponsor these lovely community appreciation nights.
It's a wonderful thing they do.
But we're running a raffle this year, and that will be the night we will have the drawing for the raffle. So the First City Lions Clubs are sponsoring this raffle for us. And Kay Murphy has tickets. They're available at City Hall. We'll have tickets available throughout all of the events during the summer in case anybody wants to buy a raffle ticket on our behalf. And then the last big event this year is going to be our 4th annual Winter Tea. And we always have a speaker come in and talk a little bit about the history of the town or the history of the libraries. And that will be early in December. Okay. So that's.
And where is that one held?
That one this year is going to be at the First Lutheran Church. We keep hoping that when the library is done, we'll be able to have our 5th annual or maybe our 6th annual tea
at the actual
library.
Oh, that'll be great.
Yeah.
Awesome. So at these events, you've been getting good reception. People have been coming. They've been supporting.
Yes.
And we hope that as that continues, they'll come inside and get even more excited about the project moving forward.
Yep, absolutely.
I should say that more detail is available not only about the history, but there's photos of historic photos. There's some videos of people talking about the importance of the Carnegie, and all that's online at your website, savethecarnegie.org.
Yep.
You guys are also on Facebook, and you've got frequent news stories and everything floating around to update people on how things are going.
Yeah, we've had so much lovely support from folks like you guys. The pioneers always willing to help us publicize our events and
the byline.
The byline, and local people. I do want to say that we are always willing and happy to have volunteers. We're looking for people who are interested in being on the committee or helping us with events. We have regular steering committee meetings, and those are publicized, so I would like to invite anyone who's interested to come and attend, listen to what we're doing, ask questions, make suggestions. You know, we're always looking for people to get involved.
Well, thank you both for joining me today. We look forward to following the process as it comes forward and culminates next spring. So thank you.
Thank you, Bethany.
Thank you for watching us this current episode of Lakeland Currents. Join us next time.